Brought to you by JMR Rentals, professional digital cinema and broadcast equipment rentals in Brooklyn, New York. JMRNY.com. Hello and welcome to No Rest for the Weekend. I'm Jason Godbey, and joining me via Zoom today, they are the director and star of the new feature film ENYS MEN, Mr. Mark Jenkin and Miss Mary Woodvine. Welcome, guys.
Hi, thanks.
Hello.
Hi, Jason.
Thanks for having us.
Did I get the title right? Did I pronounce it correctly?
It's Ennis was spot on. The second word is spelt men, but it's pronounced Maine, as in M-A-N-E. It's a Cornish word.
Right. So as a guy from Brooklyn, I'm probably not going to get that. So it's ENYS MEN.
That's it.
ENYS MEN. Okay. We need an interpreter. I need somebody who can translate British to Brooklyn. All right, so we don't have a lot of time, so I want to get right into it. I managed to watch the film. Unfortunately, I didn't get to go to the press screening at New York Film Festival. I had to watch it on my laptop, but I thought it was a beautiful movie, and there's a lot of things I liked about it. But I want to hear from you guys. So can you just tell me a bit, like, I was trying to figure out how to describe it to somebody, but like, give me a little bit about the film and kind of how it came about. I'm interested in the inspiration behind it.
Okay.
Over to you.
Yeah. So it was so my previous film, Bait, was made in the same way formally. So I use a clockwork 16mm camera, shoot everything silently, post-sync everything. And the last film was kind of a melodrama. But when it broke out, a lot of the reviews that were written about it and a lot of the comments about it were saying that it felt like it was tipping into horror. It felt like a horror film. And I tried to sort of unpick why people felt that way, because it really was it was a melodrama. And I began to realize it was the form, it was the disconnect between the picture and the sound, the 16mm hand processed negative that the film was made from. And I just got really interested about the idea of maybe making a genre film. It seemed like a fun thing to do, having done quite a serious drama. I thought maybe, I could try working in genre. So it came from that really, and I wanted to make something in the same way, using the same form, using the same crew that I use, and largely the same cast. So it came from there really. I wanted a very simple story that we could achieve on a limited budget in a short period of time, because we really wanted to get a follow-up to Bait done as quickly as possible, which didn't happen because of COVID, but we did end up making the film at the same sort of kind of scale. So it's basically a one-hander really. It's a woman alone on an island off the coast of Cornwall, isolated from the rest of the world, set in 1973, and she's working as a volunteer for a wildlife trust, observing a rare flower that grows on this island.
One-hander is correct. Mary, I wanted to talk to you about this because, man, you got a lot of heavy lifting to do in this script. It's not a very glamorous part, not a very loquacious part. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger had more to say in the first Terminator movie than you got to say in this movie. But can you kind of talk about how you got sort of like, what was the way into this character for you?
We've just been talking about how COVID affected and sort of informed my performance. I think during that time, because the character is very isolated and is obviously on her own on an island. And so that was a really good way in for me, sort of that isolation that we'd all felt during COVID really fed into the performance of it. And it's interesting you said that it's the heavy lifting of the story, because like you say, there's no, well, there is dialogue obviously, but there isn't very much dialogue. So it's kind of, because you're not speaking, it doesn't necessarily feel that I'm actually carrying the movie, but of course I am, because the story is being told physically with what the character is doing, and making the routine of every day, which is sort of setting out the story, and how you realize once the routine starts to change, how the story then starts to change.
Like when I was watching, I was like, am I watching? It felt like very Bergman-esque, a lot of Bergman notes in it, and a little Kubrick here and there. I wanted to ask you because I'm a huge fan of 16 millimeter cinema. It's one of my favorite mediums, and the movie is set in 1973, and it looks like it was made in 1973. Like it looks like a relic. It looks like somebody. Where did you dig this film up from? In fact, if I didn't see you here now, I'd think they just stole this movie from somebody else from the 70s. Was that was the choice of stock and the choice of going on 16, was that about the period, or is that just something that you like?
I just like it. It's baked into my taste, really. It's where I always jump to. If I want to watch a movie, then it'll be, my starting point will be that period. I'll go straight to there and try and find something I haven't seen before. So it all feeds into, I mean, a lot of it is dictated by the equipment that I like using. I like using a hand wound 16 millimeter camera that I know inside out. I understand the technology. I know what it does. I know how to take a light reading. I know how to set that on the camera. And I know that from that point on, if anything goes wrong, I know why it's gone wrong. But I also know that that camera will give me some crazy results as well that I can't predict, which is the exciting bit as well. And I think that's all in those films from that period. So yeah, I mean, it's sorry, what was your original question? I'd lost my train of thought there.
Well, I was just asking, like, was the aesthetic, because the film stock, the 16 millimeter, it looks like it's made in the 70s. Was that part of the choice? Was like, I want this movie to not only be about 1973, but look like it was made in 1973.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly that. And it's really difficult to tell until you put it in front of an audience. You got no idea whether that works, because when I look at the film, I can still see what's going on behind the camera, and I can see left of frame. There's there's like a modern car, and to the right of the frame there might be an airplane going past or whatever. So it's really reassuring to then hear people say that it looks like it's from that period. We had dinner with Ed Lachman the other night, and he'd seen it, and he said he just couldn't believe it was a contemporary film, because he thought the same thing. People were telling him, no, it's this film's made now, and he was saying, no, this is a film from the 70s. And it was weird because it was kind of completed the circle, because I always quote Ed, because when he was getting ready to shoot Carol with Todd, he tested all the 35mm stocks, and he said that the results came back. He said, no, the grain's too fine. There's no grain on these stocks anymore. So that's why they shot it 16 millimeter, which is exactly how I feel. So normally I hand process my own negative when I'm shooting black and white, and I can really interfere with the neg, and I can really boil the developer to get the grain out, and I can solarize it, and I can really mess around with the processing. Because this was color, it went to the lab, so I had to work out other ways that I could make sure that grain was really jumping out and the color was as bright as possible, and ensuring that the lab didn't do a digital cleanup on it. And also saying to the lab, look, if the chemistry's going off, don't change the chemistry on our account. Just stick the neg through the crappy developer with, And also we're having a 35mm print made at the moment, and there was some test was done, and they were a bit worried there was a bit of gate weave on the test from the 35mm print, and I'm just thinking, no, it's fine. We need a really shitty 35mm print, because if they do a dud, we'll have that one as well. Don't chuck away the dud print, because all of that. I'd love to see this film on videotape. I'd love there to be a videotape version of it that goes out as well, because I just love that period and I don't want to be a real, be really geeky about it, but that's where, watching those 1970s genre films, that's where my love of film came from. So to see my film, or to have my film mistaken as one of those, is the highest compliment that anybody can pay. I
mean, I can literally geek out about 16mm all day long. I've shot 2 films on 16mm myself,
right,
in black and white, and I've always wanted to do one in color, but I just can't afford it. You know, like it's just much cheaper and easier to shoot on digital. And one of the things I noticed right away, I was like, this doesn't look like somebody took digital and made it look like 16. This looks like real 16, which I thought was great. Mary, I wanted to ask you too, like, what was your collaboration like? Like, I mean, I imagine I could see that some team, because you're shooting outdoors.
Yeah.
So, I think you had probably like a small crew, so it's a very intimate setting. So, how are you guys working together? Like, and what was the relationship like on set?
Well, we're partners as well is the other thing that I didn't know whether.
Oh, okay. So
there's a bit of domestic crossover.
is that a good thing, or is that does that make matters more complicated as well?
He's going to wait for me to answer first, then. I think it is a good thing, and I think it obviously causes tension sometimes, but I think in terms of working, I'd say when we were on set, that happened less than when we were off set, actually. And that wasn't just because there were other people around. That was because when we're on set, we're excuse me, we're getting on with our jobs. We're doing our jobs. I think there's some stuff though, like for instance, I don't know if you're working with another actress and the other actress said to you, what does this bit mean? Or do you know what she's feeling at this point? And you just say to me, I'm not telling you. So I'd have to.
But I would say that to an actor.
You would say that to another actor.
I don't want to give backstory away. So that's, that I would be like that with anybody.
And that's great. But as an actor, sometimes I like to be told what I'm thinking or what I'm meant to be doing at this point. But then it was brilliant because it was a really unnerving and unsettling film, that there were times when I felt, because of seeing the sort of knowing the genre slightly, that I felt I should be screaming and terrified and showing utter horror and terror in my face, and it was brilliant because Mark would just say, no, I don't want that sort of film.
For me, it was really important that this wasn't a film about a woman being terrorized and chased around an island in a nightie. I think that was really key. So there had to be power to Mary's character. That character, the volunteer, has to have a certain amount of kind of agency. But for me, that's done through a sort of passivity and not being overtly freaked by what's going on. But I think, going back to what you were asking, I think the other thing with it is me and Mary are a couple working on this film together, but also you're absolutely right, it's a tiny crew, and that crew, everybody on that crew are either very close friends or direct family. So there is this personal professional crossover that is most acute in our relationship, but exists within the crew. So the difficult professional conversations you might have to have, you're having them, or I'm having them, or anybody's having them with either friends or family. So that difficulty goes throughout the film, but also we're also familiar with each other. It's also incredibly comforting. We've all worked together before, and it is to film the film crew and the cast and crew to just reinforce a cliche. It feels like a big family, and in our case, it literally is a big family, or quite a small family.
Yeah,
I think that could either be lovely or a fist fight, depending on your family. Yeah, I wanted to ask you because I don't have a ton of time, but I wanted to kind of ask you because I feel like it's one of those movies I need to see again. Like I don't think upon first viewing everybody's going to get this film because there's a lot of imagery in it, and you go, oh, what's that? Wait, what? And you want to kind of like be able to take it in more. But what did you guys feel like you wanted either audiences to walk away with or kind of be affected by? It is very haunting, like the music. And when I first watched it, the first maybe 5 minutes of the film, I'm like, where's the Richard Attenborough narration? And then I was like, oh, this looks like a William Friedkin movie. Like it's like Richard Attenborough meets The Exorcist. But I would love to kind of know what where you wanted to go with this thematically, or what you wanted to kind of audiences to be impacted by.
I don't think about the audience at all when I'm making the film. Just and I don't want that to come across as arrogant or self-obsessed or whatever, but it's a self-protection thing for me. When I'm developing it, I don't want to be thinking about an audience, because one, I'll end up second guessing what other people want, and I don't think that serves anybody well. And also, I don't want to presume that there is an audience for the film. You know, I'm not established enough to think that I've got this bolted on audience who's going to watch everything I do. So I try and block out all ideas of an audience. It's harder to do that once you've made a film that has been a box office hit back in the UK and won a BAFTA and everything. You have to kind of, it's an active act to try and push that out of your mind, out of my mind. But I try and make something that I would want to watch, and think that I'm not so different to everybody else on the planet that there won't be other people who will like this film if I like the film. But I suppose what I wanted to do was to create I love the horror genre, but there are not many horror films that I think, for me, are great, because I have a problem with third acts in horror films, when the logic is applied. And so my idea was always to write a horror film that had 3 acts, but only shoot the first 2 acts, and not have that logic come in at the end. And I like the idea, like a horror film, the analogy that a horror film, the filmmaker picks up, or the storyteller picks up the audience, guides them into the forest, into the darkest bit of the forest, scares the life out of them, and then leads them back out of the forest to safety. And that's the film. I like the films that take the audience into the forest, into the darkest bit of the forest, and then just leave them there. And the audience has to kind of find their way out of the forest, and that means the film plays forever. So my favorite horror films are those ones that carry on playing in your mind forever. But and there's obviously a risk, and this film isn't going to be for everybody, because there's that risk going, well, where's the guy gone who was going to lead us out? This is bullshit, but there'll be other people who will be thinking, who like me, going back to that idea that, me hoping there's other people who think like me in the world, like being lost in the forest and trying to find their way out. So, you mentioned Kubrick. I love that final shot in The Shining of the photograph. That's the kind of quintessential leave you in the forest moment. And Lynch does, David Lynch does it all the time. You turn around and you're in the darkest corner of the forest, and he's gone, and you're left to try and work it out. Like the end of Twin Peaks: The Return, for example, or Lost Highway, or so for me it's that, and paradoxically, in one hand, I want to make films that are challenging. I want to make films that aren't for everybody, but there's part of me that wants everybody to love the film. So that's the paradox I'm stuck in the middle of.
I do think it's a lovely film. I really loved. I thought it was mesmerizing in so many ways, just looking at it. I got to wrap up, so I wanted to ask you guys, just like, what's next for the movie? Have you achieved distribution, and where can people find out about it if they want to learn more online?
That's you again.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been distributed by Neon over here in the States, and we've got distribution in a lot of territories. The BFI are handling it again in the UK. So for the US, it's Neon handling the release. We haven't got a release date yet, but it's coming soon. And we've got our US premiere tonight, which is the 8th of October at the New York Film Festival at the Walter Reed.
Congratulations, guys. Congratulations on the film. Congratulations on being in New York Film Festival. I'm so glad I got to talk to you. I'm going to wrap up, but thanks, and good luck. And if you guys have any other projects, be sure to come back. I'd love to have you on again.
Will do. Thanks, Jason. That's brilliant.
Jason.
Great to meet you.
Great to meet you. Take care. And that's all we got for you today. Thanks so much for taking this trip down the rabbit hole. For more of our content, including our movie reviews, visit our website, norestfortheweekendpodcast.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And now you can subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/getbehindtherabbit. I'd like to thank my guests, Mark Jenkin and Mary Woodvine, and our sponsor, JMR Rentals, for Behind the Rabbit Productions. I'm Jason Godbey. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.